Okay. All right. All right. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. This is your first time here. I'm Blair Armstrong of Team Armstrong Coldwell Banker, located in beautiful, beautiful Palm Desert, California. I am a global luxury specialist in the world of residential real estate here. And if this is your first time here, then you have reached a podcast called Old Guys Still Rock. It is the best podcast you probably have never heard before in your life, but we've actually have 92 other episodes. Today's episode number 93. I'm going to do some quick introductions because what you don't know is we just messed up about 2 minutes ago, and we're going after this again. So
we're live, buddy. We're live on YouTube.
How is this all happening? So good. So we're just going to do this anyway. Doesn't matter. We're running with it. We have Brent Wright of Brent Wright Incorporated. He's my co-host and best friend for almost 30 years. He has man of many hats, from body shops to detail shops to wellness centers to payroll companies. He just started building his business in business coaching and personal coaching. And if you don't know how he got there, as I said, we have 92 other episodes. Really go check him out. I think he would be a fit for a lot of you guys that are struggling in the world of business. As I said, he has done many different businesses over the last 20 something years that I've known him, almost 30 years. And then I'm on very far left on my screen is Ken McCumber, a returning guest and great contributor, especially through the world of Spotify. Mr. McCumber, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in today. And then on my left here is Mary in the Morning. She is a morning radio host here in the Coachella Valley of country radio. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks. From one show to the next.
It's just one mic in your face to another face. So we got a lot to cover, man. And ladies, let's get into it. But Brent, how is your weather out in Eugene, Oregon today?
Liquid sunshine as usual.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
How's your wife feeling today?
She is feeling much, much better. Of course, she's a little younger than me, as we know from previous episodes. So she bounces back from this. We believe it to be allergies. We kind of figured it out. It's not a cold. We think that the lichen on the oak trees is blooming about 2 months early this year. And we just have a ton of pollen up in our house. So, and it doesn't really matter if it's raining or not. It kind of just blows around, and our whole family's kind of got this sinus chest thing going on, and took some allergy medication yesterday, just thinking that might help. And sure enough, it did.
There we go. Mr. McCumber, welcome back, brother. What's new in your world? How are things been? It's almost been, I would say it's been over a year since we've had you on here. How are things? A couple transitions in your world since then.
Nice hat.
Thank you. I love the hat. I wear it any chance I get, and life is good. If I'm being honest, I'm pretty goddamn happy right now. So,
I mean, it's really hard to live in this world of golf courses and sunshine, right?
It is.
It's good to be king.
It's a struggle, but it's one that I'm willing to bear.
Mary, thank you for coming back. So we're going to get into it. I reached out to Ken McCumber last week and said, "Hey, brother, you're always giving us great comments. What is one thing that you want to talk to us about on this podcast?" And your topic is
action. And but it's more than action. So, can I take just a minute and give you a little bit of background on?
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys have a lot of past episodes. If I am remembering to the front end of the show correctly, this is what, 93?
Yeah.
And I actually went back and I took a look at kind of some of the themes that you've had on other episodes. And episode 9, keeping your foot on the gas, is all about action. Episode 19, what are you doing with the time you have left, is all about action and taking advantage of the time you have left. Episode 24, action, not words. Episode 37, sense of urgency. So there's a lot of energy in action And I guess one of the areas that I've been kind of focused on in my life this year is adding an element of intentionality to action. So, in other words, how do you, instead of just, you know, pushing forward and, you know, I guess, you know, maybe just kind of floating along, how do you really think about like the different roles that you play in your life and how you add a component of intentionality to whatever actions you want to have happen as something in your business as a business leader, or something as a leader of your family or a friend. um, so that was kind of the idea that I had around the episode, and yeah.
Brent, you want to take lead?
Yeah, I could definitely do this. So I've been writing down a few things as you go along. Thank you, by the way, for going back and listening to those, because we call we call everybody out on almost every episode to go back and listen. And so thank you for doing that. You could probably see that there's been a transition in not only technologically, we actually, hit record and things like that sometimes. So we actually did a whole episode one time and there was a noise in the back, and we had to re-record the whole bloody thing.
Yeah.
And it was just it was a good time. So as well as formatting, better discussions, not leaving things hanging. We've gotten a lot of feedback from folks about just scratching the surface of things. So that's why we've done some episodes where we've done 3-part episodes and things like that. But not just intentionality. I love that word, by the way, because you do have to create action based upon intentionality. It's very important. When you said that, it took me back to watching Muhammad Ali fight. Have you ever watched any of his old tapes? So his old tapes are not only about action and intentionality, but his actions are from an offensive and a defensive position at the same time. So what I like about that is one of the tapes I watched this last week was he actually did like 6 rounds and the other person didn't contact him once. And he didn't hit that person one time in 6 rounds. All it was just, he was just movement, fluid movement. So for me, action is about fluid movement. And that's what my intent is, to create fluid movement. Anybody can create fast, jerky movements that are not wrought with intention and not wrought with any result. And so I personally feel like if you're going to be a person of action, you have to focus on offense, defense, intentionality, and fluid movement. So that's where I went. And then you said another thing, and this is where I went with this, was you need to become the star in your own movie instead of being a supporting actor, right? You have to create the opportunity for you to star in your own show every day. Have you guys watched the Motley Crue documentary?
No, I haven't. Have you watched it?
I did. It's been a while.
Dude, you got to watch it, dude. It
Good.
is one of the biggest takeaways I took from that is, well, if they can do it, why can't we do it?
Right. I'm in country music. I mean, right now, very relevant is Jelly Roll. I mean, he grew up in a trailer park. You know, he had a mother on drugs. Nobody was looking out for him. He inevitably started, selling drugs as a way to get by. He got kicked out of every school. Well, he was told he was never welcome back to this school. And recently he was asked to come back and talk to the kids at that school about, what not to do. He's living with intention, and look at how successful he is now. He's going into prisons and talking to them about the Lord, and he's on TV and he's singing, and his wife has podcasts, and the list goes on. He's living with intention.
And I want to keep on this too, but now that you brought that up and what Brent had to say and what you and I have had conversations off of this podcast, As you all know, that I have a hard time with Jelly Roll. It's not that I don't like him,
I
but you
know
got to
a
leave
lot
him.
of people
But
do.
here's the thing: is what you just said kind of brought me back a little bit to a country artist that I really do like. Is very well known as Johnny Cash. And what Jelly
Another one.
Roll reminds me of, or what you just triggered my mind, is thinking he's like the modern day Johnny Cash, but was always kind of like that rebel with Waylon Jennings and Elvis back in the day, and they were not really accepted because that was way. And here's this guy is now is contributing. And if Johnny Cash was still here, I'm sure that he would contribute back to the society. But before we go down that path, and Brent brought up some great points, and then obviously Ken asked the question is to it is from your perspective, and I think this is what I really like about the dynamic of having you here. You guys, through the trials and tribulations of life, had to take action to
Risks.
get some risk and do some stuff. How do you feel in sharing that dynamic? And I think this, Brent, I'm going to ask you the same thing, and Ken, I'm going to ask you this too. Is like, how do you share that with your spouse? At the end of the day, like there's certain things that you're really, really, really good at that you have to take action as, but also collaborating with your husband to take action in certain things for life.
Well, take my career out of it. We have had to take some very great risks in my husband's career in that we've moved a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to pick up with children and move for the hotel industry. I mean, we've moved to islands, we've moved to mountaintops, and that's difficult to start over and to pray. I think all of you know that we're very faith oriented family, and we really take time to stop and think about and pray and really think how things impact not just us but our children. And um, we always think about like everything there, everything here. you know, we make these decisions, as Brent said, very intentionally, and they're not always the best decisions, but sometimes you also, just like you said, have to jump. And for us, in some of the big moves, I think is what you're referring
Mm-hmm.
to. We make decisions, and sometimes the decisions are wrong, and we have to know that, like, for our decisions, like, so it's a one-way ticket, right? But we can always buy another one-way ticket back.
Right.
I mean, not all of our decisions are going to be right. But if we don't take that risk, how will we ever know?
That's exactly right. And my question to you, Ken, is kind of using what that coinciding and getting back to you is, have you found yourself when you brought up this topic, and you've heard Brent and I talk about this over many different episodes, have you found yourself to the spot as I want to take action, but found yourself too scared to take action and sat back and had things pass you by? Are you one of those guys that no matter what, I'm moving forward, and if this wall is in my way, I'm going to figure out how to knock it down? Because I feel that there's some people, the reason why I asked you that question is I know for a fact is when success starts getting a bunch and you're like, it can be overwhelming to the spot that you get stuck in your spot and you don't proceed forward. I just don't know if that's ever happened with you.
Yeah, my rut is more along the lines, it's less. I'm always in motion typically. Like I have a hard time sitting still, and I have a very hard time, being content with what's in front of me typically. So more often than not, the issue that I face in terms of like blocking is more around like floating, right? So you just get to a spot where you feel comfortable, and whether it's like work wise or the relationships that you have, or even like your workouts that you're doing, and you feel comfortable, and it just becomes a little bit mindless, right? And it's really really easy to just float for a week. It's easy to float for a month or a quarter, and the next thing you know, you kind of look up, and um, you haven't gotten any closer to the things that are important to you. And so that's really that's the thing that I've got to overcome personally, is and the aspect of intentionality is really, you know, keeping what's important in front of you and figuring out on a daily basis, like, hey, what are the things that I need to do to be a better dad, or a better grandpa, or a better employee for the business that I'm a part of. And what specifically can I do today to get me just a little bit closer to having that, versus just floating along and you know, mindlessly kind of just going through the motions, you know?
You know, one thing that somebody told me that really stuck with me, they said, do it as though you're doing it for the Lord.
Yeah.
And it was a Bible study I did many moons ago. I was a young mom and I was frustrated and I was like, everything's a mess. And, you know, I was like, how can I be grateful if I'm wiping the kitchen counter for the 100th time? Because everybody left it a mess. And the Bible study leader said, do it as though you're doing it for the Lord. I could cry. And I tell you, to this day, talk about intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
When I wipe my kitchen counter, I'm like, thank you, Jesus, that these messy college kids are home, because I have messy college kids and they're healthy and they want to come home and hang out with us. Like, they think we're cool. Do it as though we're doing it for the Lord. And I thought, you know, and while I'm doing it, like, just think of things to be thankful for. And I thought, wow, talk about intentionality. And that kind of gets me to the next
step.
And it gets me out of my like downward spiral of, you know, kind of bitching and moaning in my mind too.
So Brent, with your clients,
not that you're not doing it as though you're doing it for the Lord. I'm not saying that, but that's something that works for me.
Brent, your clients, when you have that, so it's almost the same, because so Mary kind of filled in that spot. Obviously, Ken just said that stuff too. Is what are you again, going back to using me an example? Sometimes I get stuck in that rut. So when you have a client and you're looking into like, okay, how are you peeling back that onion to help them get out of that rut or get out of that stuck spot, so they can keep producing? And these are guys that typically have action. But I would say that any successful person has gotten stuck or maybe slowed down or floating, as Ken mentioned. How do you help them to get out of that, even if they're a successful person?
So we go back to basics. We go back to manifesting with intention and manifesting to create action. We did a 3-part series on planning and manifesting and all those things. So I would say go back and listen to that. The basics are in there. The process. I had this conversation with Gerard this morning in our coaching session. It's, what are you doing to get back to basics? Do you have a plan? What is the plan? Are you executing the plan? You know, he's in a spot right now where his business is growing to the point where, and in a good way, a hugely beneficial way, but he's transitioning between worker to CEO or entrepreneur to CEO. And he's in this quandary of what do I do? What do I do with my time? I don't know what to do because I've always been that worker bee mentality. And so now he has to recreate himself. And so just know that no matter where you're at in your spot, you can always take the time to slow down, stop. He called it a cleanup week is what he called it. He's in the middle of a cleanup week. He's going to get all of his stuff done. And then he's going to come back to the planning phase with intentionality and then action. So sometimes you have to slow down to get there faster, or you have to stop to actually get to the next space. So I would just say evaluate, reprioritize, replan, and then recommit.
So I'm going to use that spot for
that, which is remind yourself of why you're doing it, right? So Mary alluded to her faith. I know you guys are very faith-oriented folks. I personally have not chosen to invite JC into my life in a big way at this point. But with that said, that doesn't mean I don't live with, a purpose, or, I don't have things that are important to me that I can ground myself in and use as a basis to say for the action that I want to take, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think everybody has a trigger, right, Ken? So obviously Mary's trigger and Ken, and Brent's trigger, my trigger are that way. It doesn't make us anybody better to any of that. And I think that is one thing that we've made very clear over our episodes. Those are just our triggers, right? And I want to talk about this too, because Brent just said something. Go ahead.
Wait, but I do think that you made a really, really great point, and I hope I didn't come across as judgmental by making that little point about doing it for the Lord, because that just is something that works for me. I think your point that we all just need a purpose.
Yeah.
is huge. I don't care who you are, you need a purpose. And if you're in a phase, you know, it could be your retiring phase. It could be, you know, my sister who's mentally challenged phase. We all need a purpose, whether it's volunteering or a job or, you know, mothering or being a single dad or whatever it is. We just need a purpose. Everybody needs a purpose. It's huge. I love the choice of words that you just said.
And I love that you brought that up because Ken and I were having a conversation about a person that we both know very well, and they were kind of floating. And
Probably
Ken, you
lacking
reached,
purpose.
you reached out to them, and you know, it's like, you know, if you feel like you need to do something more, do this, this, and that. I mean, we're not gonna. You and I think you remember our conversation yesterday on Bump and Grind, and we don't need to mention names on that, but that was just, you know, I think a lot of us get to that spot that, hey, we've kind of reached our pinnacle, and all of a sudden we just take a time out, and then you lose that purpose. And it's basically what that's Mary is saying into it. And Brett and I have talked about this before, is recapturing that purpose. Why are we here on this planet? Why are we here on this earth? So what Mary said on that part of this, but do you have any words of wisdom on that part? And then Brent, as soon as he's done, I want you to answer that question too, maybe for April, because I know you've coached her in the past, but going back to you, Ken, is when you were talking to that person, how did you coach them to kind of like maybe light that fire back to get, you know, rejuvenate that purpose that they've had for so long and get back into action?
I'm trying to, there's two people I can think of that you may be thinking of, and I want to make sure I talk to the right. Can you give me two initials?
MB.
MB. Oh, yeah. So, you know, I think the basis of it was, and it's not a secret. Like it's my wife. So,
okay.
and we both went through the same thing, right? So we both had periods where we took some time off, and we had a lot of years of working. And I think for both of us, we were just really, really burned out, and we needed a break. And we both, I think, arrived at the same conclusion at different times, right? So she had her break a little bit earlier than I did. And what inevitably happened was she left a company that she had been working for like over 20 years. And at the time, and thinking that she wanted to be done, she wanted to retire, and really kind of just floated through the year, right? Initially did some stuff I think that she had on a to-do list that she had always been interested in doing. And, you know, by the end of that period of time, it was kind of like, man, like prioritizing, you know, different chores and different errands for the week. And there just wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason in what she was doing. And she was unhappy, you know, and, at the end of the day, you know, we had a conversation around like, you know, what do you need to do to get back to your place? And for her, it turned out to be going back to work. And I went through the exact same experience like 2 years ago. Took some time off, was burned out, and kind of arrived at the same place. And at the end of the day, we both kind of realized that for us, you know, a big part of our purpose is work. And you know, the competitive side of what we do, and the engagement that we have with people that we work with, and those are very important aspects of our life. And so, you know, I think we both got to a place where we kind of realized that was those were important. And you know, weren't necessarily the funnest conversations to have at the time, but
But see, I think that, you know, on that too, Ken, I think that's a great thing that you kind of just shared that with us, and thank you for being transparent about that. I just want to make sure everyone is protected on there. But anyway, I think that, you know, that's a big thing about this, and Brent and I, and obviously the other episodes, I know that we keep talking about stuff. So the reason why I keep saying that is there's a lot of great golden nuggets from the past that are really coming up to the present, where we're here in episode number 93, but it's having those tough conversations. They're not fun. You've had them with Damon and all that stuff. Brent's had him with April. You know, I fight to have those. Chrissy's really good about trying to pull that stuff out of me. I'm horrible about.
Well, I would love to have that conversation, because I think for the most part, you men aren't really that good about talking about. I mean, I guess I shouldn't generalize that, but I think in general, men aren't really, they don't want to talk about all of that. At least in my home, my man is very like, that's negative. This
Yeah.
is my safe place.
Yeah.
So what would you three men? I mean, this is great. I
This
could
is good
just
stuff like
sit
this.
back and I would love to ask you three, as a wife, what is the best approach with men to have an intentional conversation to get through to you?
So Brent, that is to you because you and I were both really, really
I mean,
good
you guys
silos.
could really help a lot of marriages right now, including mine.
Yeah, well, we could do that. And then thank you for asking that question. But I just, where Brent and I have come from, we were very guarded. Brent has come out of his shell a lot faster than I have over the last couple of years. So what were some of the struggles? Because Brent, I remember the silent giant, right? The quiet giant or something like that. How did April chip away to where you guys had had those conversations that really helped not only her get better, but realistically help you get better?
The best thing that happened in our situation was her really listening and then applying what I was asking her for the space that I needed. So let me break that down. So I'm a very schedule oriented person. And so if it's not on the schedule, it doesn't happen.
That's how I am.
So she purposely has, and on top of it, has learned to communicate with me in ways that I like to be communicated to. So she's really purposely listened and applied, took intentional action, our theme here, to really making it easier for me to be in the safe space that I need to be able to respond effectively for me. So she's scheduled it on my calendar in a time and a space where she knew that I wouldn't be distracted by work, wouldn't be distracted by kids, wouldn't be distracted by all the things that I'm normally distracted with. So one, I can totally focus on her and what the goal is for the conversation. Two, she sent me an email and prefaced the conversation with bullet points. That's my communication style. So she learned how to communicate with me in a way that made it easy and simple for me to think about it, formulate my thoughts, communicate with her in a way that she needed as well. She needs to know that she's safe and protected and that she can open up and be completely transparent without fear of reprisal. So she then set the tone. This is what I need during the conversation. And this is our goal, right? I'm a very goal-oriented person as well. So I need to know what the goal is. What are we trying to solve? What problem are we trying to solve? What's the solutions that you think that we could head towards? All of those things. So really, just in a nutshell, she spoke to all my love languages to be able to get where she needed to go.
So knowing you for 30 years, how, and then your relationship with April has not been that long. I mean, that's
15.
here, no there. So, right.
15.
That's here, no there. The point I'm trying to make is how long did that take for that transition to actually happen? I understand that. Basically you painted like a really great scenario, but that did not happen overnight, correct?
No, not at all. Various stages of that are have you ever seen the heartbeat tape at the hospital?
Yeah.
That's how our relationship is if it's working and effective. You got hills and valleys, hills and valleys, hills and valleys. And they're sometimes not hills, they're the freaking Mount Everest, right? So you show up on a Friday and you think you're gonna have a conversation and it goes completely sideways and off the rails. And then on Saturday, you have the same conversation and then it's effective and works. It's not easy. It's not simple, but you have to keep working at it. And quite frankly, doing the Enneagram test, I asked her to do an Enneagram test. I asked her to do a love language test. We do those love language tests almost every year or every other year. We also do, I use my employee self-evaluation form. We've done that a couple of times. I give it to her, I give myself one, and we fill out what our goals, what our thoughts are for our self-evaluation, and then we exchange.
We do
It's
a
not,
form of that as well. It's on our anniversary. We on our cards. I always ask for a renewal on the lease for one more year.
I love it. I love
What
it.
are your suggestions, Ken?
You know, one thing that struck me as Brent was walking through his, I guess, mindset was, there was a great article I read once that talked about discussions. And Mary, you initially said, like, what's the best way for a man to relate to a woman? I think in this context, and whether you're a man or a woman, I think it boils down to asking a very simple question. You're in front of your spouse, you're in front of your kids, whoever it is, and they want to talk, they want to connect, and the question needs to be, do you want me to hear you? Do you want me to help you, or do you want me to hug you? And typically the end result of a conversation is one of those three things. And when I was younger, a lot of times I would really, in particular, talking to my wife, I would always rush to like help and try to fix everything. And sometimes that's not the deal, right? You people sometimes they just need a hug, or sometimes they just want to vent, and they want to be heard. So it's just understanding kind of the basis of that, and kind of coming at it from that perspective.
Can you say that one more time, because that was so freaking good?
Yeah, that's good in any relationship.
So-
I was just like, oh, let me just like embed this in my brain, because I would like to, I wish I could go back in time with my children when they would come to me, I have girls, so they can be just a teensy bit dramatic, in the teenage years. We're past that. Thank you, Jesus. But I wish I would have. So do you want me to hear you? Do you want me to hug you, or do you want me to help you?
Right. Hear, help, hug.
Hear, help, hug. I love that.
T-shirts will be out next week.
Yeah, this is good.
I can't take credit for it.
Yes, you can, man.
There's the new podcast name.
There we go. Hear,
help, hug.
Hear, help, hug.
This is good.
So Ken, when we were on hole number 17 and member next year, and I missed that putt, you can just say, do you need me to hear you, help you, or hug you?
Oh, I'm going to start saying, yeah, anytime we're together now and you have a look, our spouse will be like, what the hell are you talking about?
I love it.
Claire, the answer is always going to be hug.
All right, I love that, brother. That's where you go. But I mean, I know that I just made a joke of that, but I think that is so serious.
So
I mean, we've been talking about taking action this whole episode in so many different words, from business relationships. And now we're peeling back the relationship of a man and a woman, which is super important. And like probably the most important relationship, or the business transaction, what you call it. Ken asked, like, do I get to renew my lease this year? Brent is very business. I'm very business minded, oriented, but I think that is so good. What a great action step. And really go back. Brent's had a lot of great topics. What Ken just said, some great insight, golden nuggets on that. So Mary, that's those things to it. I'm a work in progress, man. I have been do not show dents in your armor, suck it up, do those things. That's the way that I was raised. So there's not a lot of emotion. Chrissy is very good. There's times that she gets super frustrated with me because I give like one-word answers and it drives her freaking insane. And I'll be honest, I feel like shit when that happens, because I know what she's looking for. I know this girl will go to like the absolute ends of the world to make sure that that her husband is protected and taken care of. It is just like this. It is this mountain of rock that I have been embedded in, that she's slowly chipping away. And like the frustration part is, and I get it. I've now realized it over like probably the last couple months. So it hasn't been like years. It's really been the last couple months, and just trying to address that. So I know there's a lot of guys out there that are like that. And I'd really, and what Ken said, what Brent said, again, I want you to have faith in that those things just do not happen overnight. Those are lessons that are learned, and you're not too old or too young to learn those lessons now. Brent and I did an episode probably almost 2 years ago. I would say probably the first 4 or 5 episodes. We always talked about, well, that window's closed. Remember that episode, Brent?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We talked about that. The window's never closed. It's just a little bit of a crack, and it just takes a little fingertip to open that window and really make that take that action to progress forward in any type of relationship that you're having. So that was my soapbox of this episode right now. But Brett, do you have anything to interject on that?
Yeah, one of the key things that April's been very smart about is that key phrase that you've heard before people say. She's applied it. It's called, people say it, meet people where they are.
Good.
So she's done a really good job of meeting me where I'm at. Like, I'm not a big jewelry person. You don't see all of this stuff. So she wanted, she thought it'd be a good idea that I have a watch because I'm always running behind. So I don't want to wear a watch. But she met me where I was at. She's like, it provides you with so much data, honey. Like you love data. Like, this is the data that it provides you. Can you try it out? Can you try and wear it for, to collect that data? Let's look at that. Same thing with the ring. I've never been real big. It just bugs the tar out of her that I didn't wear a wedding ring since we got married. I just have never felt like I wanted to wear one. I've heard horror stories in my industry, in the body shop mechanic world, of people getting their fingers ripped off or getting their finger crushed, things like that. So she's like, hey, you don't want to wear your watch when you sleep. And so you're not collecting your sleep data. Do you want to collect sleep data? And the answer was yes.
So you got one of those rings.
So I got a ring now, right? And so I've had it for a couple of years now, and it's provided me the data that I want. But really, it's never about manipulation. It's about chess moves. And we've talked about this in other episodes as well, is creating opportunities for action in others that you would like to see happen and figuring out a way to meet them where they are.
So we have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Of this episode, and just being attention to the time on here. So I'm going to kind of go around the table, and I'm going to start with you, Ken, and then Mary, and then I'm going to end up with Brent here. Final thoughts for you. Some things, maybe a golden nugget that you take away from today, or maybe some advice to those guys that are. Guys or women. Actually, I'm going to leave you with the women part. How about that? That's the best part. But guys who are like maybe struggling to find action, and what you really found that's helped you kind of get to that rut.
Oh boy. So I would say, we all have a reason for being. We all have the things in our life that are important to us that push us forward. For a big time athlete, it's like winning a national championship, right? March Madness is coming in next week in a big way. They're chasing that dream of getting a national championship. For some people, it's selling $25 million in real estate. I know one of those. For some, I'm just gonna take a guess here. Maybe it's like being the all-time #1 morning radio show host for country music in the Coachella Valley. Mary, maybe you're already there. I don't know. At any rate, we all have our reason for being, and I guess what I would say is keep that in mind, but also add some intentionality to all the little pieces and parts that go into getting you there, and all of the things that you need to do day by day, hour by hour, to just get a little closer, inch a little bit closer to where you're trying to get to. And in particular, get you past like the areas where you get some roadblocks happening. Add some intentionality to what you're trying to do, and just keep the big picture in mind.
I love it, brother. Thank you, man, for saying that. All right, Mary, your final thoughts, golden nuggets that you may have got today some things that maybe even not only helping women to kind of get to the next level with action, but also kind of some insight maybe for us guys.
One thing I loved some of the insight that Brent gave me just for my own marriage about, meeting my husband where he's at, like trying more to speak his language. I did read the book, The 5 Languages of Love. I would recommend that. I need to maybe go back and read that again. But one thing that I really try to remember daily, and I think Blair can attest to this because I think I say it kind of a lot, is who, what, where, when, why. I try and ask myself that every day. Like, who am I trying to reach? What is my goal? How am I going to get there? And ultimately, what is my why? Like, why? What am I living for? Why am I doing this? Just to kind of remind myself daily, like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? For me, I've been gifted this amazing platform. And now again, being part of your podcast, another platform that's reaching men, of my own age, which is interesting, the majority men, there's women too, hopefully now more women,
Right?
if I'm on board. But, like 265,000, people every morning I'm talking to, and, that's a pretty big gift of a platform. And if I could just make a little bit of a difference every day. And so, really thinking about that and intentionally speaking, which isn't my strong point, because I sometimes just speak.
And I think that's okay too.
It is, but
I hear you.
But I have a platform and I have the ability to change lives with that platform. And so really being intentional about what I say. So for me, who, what, where, when, why.
And
Yeah.
You want me to hear you, help you, or hug you?
I always want to hug, but that was another thing I wanted to say to you guys and to all the men out there listening. I think what Ken said is precious. Every woman wants to hear that from their husband or their man. I think every child needs to hear that. And just to tell you, gentlemen, women just want to be heard and then hugged.
All right, Brent, you get to wrap this bad boy up today.
Yeah. So I would tell you, if you're struggling with action or action intentionally, is to go back to basics. Start out every day with the simplest thing to find success. Wake up, get out of bed, turn back around and make your bed. Little wins. You have to set up minor successes before you can build on major successes. Don't just come out of the gate thinking you're going to be the king of the world every day. You got to start by being a servant to yourself and then a servant to others, and then you can be king or queen.
All right.
It's good.
All right, gang, that is it for today. Again, if this is your first time here, we actually only ask for one thing. Share the freaking show. Become a subscriber either on YouTube or Spotify. We went live today. I'm excited to see how this turned out, actually. I'm really good to it. Give a like, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, whatever it's going to take. But I would really suggest that you do watch this maybe 1 or 2 times over and remember listen to it if you're going to listen, if you're a listener instead of a watcher. But share the show. There was a lot of great sense. And what I really love about this dynamic is that we have a woman's side of it and we also have the men's side. So can't say that, this is only one sided. We have 2 sides now. So
although it's kind of 3 against 1.
But I'm
pretty strong.
It was pretty strong on there. So we're good there. So guys, until we see each other next week, stay safe, but most of all, God bless. Take care, guys. All right, we're live, so I'm just going to get the heck out of here. Have a great day, everyone. We'll talk to you later.
Bye, guys.